Okay, so 3 days ago, you both went into a hoarder's house with law enforcement and you came out with 67 snakes and one African gray. Paul, Joy, why don't you tell us about that story and maybe how people can help out in this
Sure.
situation that we as a hobby are in?
Basically, about a week ago, we found out about a member of the keeping community who we both know, and found out that she had caused the death of a snake in her care. And this was the latest one in a string of a number of snakes that had died in her care. And we reached out to her and said, "Hey, you really need to help us. Let us help you. We're going to come and take some of your snakes. Is that okay?" And she agreed to let us do that. So Joy got on a plane from Boston, and I got on a plane from Seattle, and we met in a Midwest city, and we collected these snakes from this woman's house. And we can get into the horror show that it was if you want to, but basically we drove them. We wound up driving them 10 hours to Colorado and took them to Lori Tarini's animal sanctuary in just outside of Colorado Springs.
And so any contributions or anything are going to go to Lori?
Yeah, well, mostly to her vet.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah.
All 67 of the snakes need just an initial wellness check that's like $80 or $85 just for that. And then a lot of them are going to likely need additional care. They were very thin, very dehydrated, really in rough shape. And so it's going to be a long road getting them to a point where they're ready to be adopted out.
Yeah.
What was the first thing that went through your mind when you walked through the door, Joy?
We went in thinking that we were going to take most of the snakes or some of the snakes, and walking into that house, it was very apparent that we needed to take all of the snakes. And thankfully, we were working with some incredible law enforcement officers who really had our backs and were able to see how dire the situation was. And we were able to take quick action and get every single one of those snakes out of that house.
That's awesome.
Yeah, basically the officer who took the initial call, she just by happenstance happened to have her grandson keeps a ball python. And so she had a soft spot for them. And when she went and saw the condition that these snakes were being kept in, she said, I don't know the details of what these snakes do deserve, but I know it isn't this. Mm. And you need to make this better. So when we had been in town and actually seen what was going on, we contacted her and said, you need to help us get all of these snakes because a bunch of them have already died and the ones that are here are near death. And so she made that happen.
Can you give me some stats on some of these snakes, like what their body condition was and at specific ages?
Joy, you want to do that?
Yeah. So 3 and 5-year-old snakes were the size of emaciated hatchlings. Almost every single snake was severely underweight and stunted, with the exception of maybe a couple that this keeper was really committed to breeding. On a scale of 1 to 9 on a body condition chart, many of them were a 1. Very little muscle, if any at all, spines visible, stuck shed.
Yeah. I mean, you could easily see individual vertebrae on their spines. There was a 3-year-old snake that weighed 129 grams.
Wow.
It's just awful, right? It was totally awful. The rack, most of the racks didn't have any heat, and they bone dry cocoa coir and filthy water bowls that may or may not have had water. And since they were only being fed like maybe a few times a year, God knows how old the feces were that were in there, but super grim. But really now, so we get them to Colorado, and there's this whole team of people that are really working tirelessly on this, and that's the happy part of the story, right? That this community of people came together. So Joy and I were the boots on the ground people, but there's another 10 people or so who are really, really, really working hard. Every minute that's put into it is volunteer, and trying to get these snakes to the point where they're viable and where they can live. And then they're going to be adopted out to super carefully vetted homes, and for pet homes, not breeding homes. But it's going to take quite a bit of time and money to make that happen. So at this point, the estimates are somewhere around $14,000 or $15,000 effort to make that happen. And so we've raised a couple $1,000s so far. So now we're just kind of making the rounds with basically everybody in the community. The community has a big heart. People want to help out. And it's the kind of thing where if you send $10 in, that's 3 rats. And that makes a difference. That's snakes that haven't eaten in months. So we're going to be doing things going forward. We're probably going to be talking about this for a while because it's going to be a long-term effort, but we'll be doing stuff like sponsor a snake and that kind of thing. But we do have a thing going on right now, and I know you'll put it in the show notes, but through Friday the 25th, April 25th, through the end of the day, if people make a donation of $50 or more and send us just a screenshot of the donation to bprescue2025 at Gmail, we've got a drawing for right now. There's $200 gift cards at feeder suppliers. We're going to see if we can get other people to make it even more gift cards, but that's a great way to, make it that much more fun, right?
Okay. Yeah, we'll have that in the show notes, and the first thing will be the link going directly to where somebody can.
Yeah, it's a PayPal donation thing, and like I said, and Joy said that the initial expense is vet bills. It's lots of these snakes. Just the intake, as Joy said, $80 a snake. That's $5,000 of intakes, and then a bunch of them need ongoing medical treatment.
Were there any mites or anything like that?
Yep. So yeah, they'll all be treated with NexGard. Fortunately, and the mites are one of the easier things to treat. If they're eating, some of them haven't eaten yet, so it's a question of, are they going to be able to be brought back to the point where they can even eat? I think the vet is pretty hopeful that they'll be able to, but it's going to be a lot of work.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right. Well, we'll have the link where people can donate in the show notes. That'll be the first thing there. I'm not going to really put anything else there. So if
that's awesome. Thank you, Adam.
Just go straight in there and follow that link and make a donation. Even if it's, if you think you can't donate anything, you could probably donate $1. So don't feel bad about that. Anything is appreciated. Anything is better than nothing.
Absolutely.
To help get these animals rehabilitated.
Some of these snakes are so small that they're eating like fuzzy hopper adult mice. Like it costs like $1 for a mouse. If you donate $1, $2, you're feeding a snake. I think another important thing worth mentioning here is we talk all the time in the community about self-policing. Right. And this is an example of self-policing and law enforcement working together to save these snakes from a really, really awful situation. And by donating to support these snakes, you get to be a part of that process of pushing our hobby in the direction you want to see it go.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, guys. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I think that's good. I really appreciate you being willing to just jump on this and put it out. And I know you're a relentlessly positive guy, and I'm sure the audience will be as well. So really appreciate that.
Thank you, Paul. I'm happy to help. Happy to do it.
Cool. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.